What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you're all doing well today. I decided today to finally do a little bit of Supercross and just Supercross practice with both Rum and Charlie, because as we know, I like leaving things until the very last minute and then being very underprepared when the actual racing happens. So I thought we'll try and get ahead of the curve a little bit. You know, it's 3/4 days-ish, depending on where you are, left until Anaheim 1 racing starts. And so I always knew that these new OEM bikes, you can definitely unlock a few more rhythm sections or big lines on the tracks than you used to, because, you know, more traction, just a bit more speed in general, more stable front end, it all equates into bigger, better lines. I didn't realise to what extent that was the case. So there's a few tracks that we all play together, and there are some absolutely disgustingly big lines on a lot of Supercross tracks that I never would have even attempted to go to before. But what we're going to do in this video is we are going to do, I think I'm going to do 2 tracks in general. So first one here is Rust. This is a Stone Rider creation, and the second one is going to be 2023 Nashville. Now that one's got a bit of an asterisk next to it because it's last year's template, so the sizes of the berms and the jumps and stuff won't be the same as 2024's ones. This track, however, Rust, I believe, uses the same template as we're going to be using for the 2024 season, so it's a bit more realistic. And I am on a 450, so this might not fully apply to the 250s. However, stuff like this, just being able to very, very casually be able to quad my way out of corners, it's pretty gross. So I'm actually curious to see how this is going to affect the racing. For all of you passionate gamers, you can now get 20% off all G Fuel products worldwide by using code LINS at checkout. And for any of you motorheads looking for some new drip or apparel, use code MXPR_LINS15 fxrracing.eu to get 15% off. All links and codes are in the description down below. Enjoy the video and drop a cheeky little like and subscribe. So I'm not sure what Stone Rider's going to be able to do really to stop that from being the case, because if you make like jumps really, really big, for example, then the 250s might struggle to even just hit triples out of turns. But right now it's actually unreal. I apologise, I'm going to be clearing my throat a lot for this. I'm still a bit under the weather. But stuff like this, you can see how casual that was. I just gently roll on the throttle, cut down a little bit early to hit the higher point of the jump rather than the edge of the track, and up and over, no problem. I generally never would have even tried to attempt jumps like that before, but these bikes just seem so quick. Now, I literally, the very last video I'd made, I said that I was vibing with the Fantic and enjoying the Fantic a lot. However, being in a server, me and Rum were side by side. He was on the Husky, I was on the Fantic, and we both went for a line on this track actually, which I'll show you in a second, where we both downsided the first jump in the section absolutely to perfection, and then went to kind of quad again, and I got nowhere near and he made it no problem. And it's actually this section here, so you quad in, and if you downside this well enough, you can get all the way up and over and step onto that table to then step off. He got onto that table no problem at all. I've done it a handful of times now on this bike. However, when I was on the Fantic, I got nowhere near. And I know a lot of it is to do with suspension and stuff, but in general, so far, the Husky feels like it turns a little bit tighter than the Fantic does, and seems like it's just got a little bit more oomph. The place that I'm really struggling with at the moment is Whoops, but that's all going to come down to suspension, so I'll be working on it a little bit. Charlie said he was like grinding away on suspension behind the scenes over the Christmas period, so he's been doing a lot of testing himself on the Husky as well. So already, I told you that I like changing my mind 10 times. We've changed it again already. After one single day, I've gone from Fantic to Husky now, and in a way, I quite like that I'm riding this bike, because if any of you have been around for quite a while now, you will be aware that Husky was the bike that I won the European 2022 Supercross Championship on. That was before all these kids just cracked out of their minds, came to the game and absolutely started duking on all the old boys like me and putting us a couple seconds a lap down, because there's a few tracks where I just can't fathom where I'm losing so much time. I finally downloaded the Reaper Doc like pre-season track, because that came out when I was away, and I've done laps that I felt like, you know, they're pretty solid laps. I hit all the big lines minus the disgusting like triple quad after the finish line. I've got no chance of that, and I put in a solid lap. I get like a 102 point whatever, and then I get told, oh, by the way, people are running 59/1 minutes. I was like, What? How? Where? How do I lose that much time? There's not even like a proper whip section on that track for me to lose loads of time in, so I've got no idea. My best bet is to basically do what I feel like I've been doing for the last year now, which is just try and rely on learning the track quickly and being consistent. If I kind of rewind your brains back, not that long ago, but a couple of weeks back to the round 1 of the US Open Championship that Rubes hosts, I rode the Fantic. Was it the Fantic? I rode A252 Stroke, it probably was the Fantic. And because it was a brand new track that had just come out, even though I was on a bike that was underpowered compared to the 450s I was racing, because I'm decent at learning tracks quite quickly and being consistent on new tracks, I actually rode really, really well, like much better than I expected. So that's kind of going to be my game plan going into the 2024 season. Is I know there's a lot of people that are a hell of a lot quicker than me. There you go, got that line clean now. You can actually quad out of this corner as well if I get the turn right. Oh, stretch it. Barely. I think I took off a little bit too far to the left there. But yeah, I've just got to go for consistency. I need to work on starts because my starts over the last year have been absolutely abysmal. And if you know anything about MX bikes, you know that Supercross is 90% starts anyway. It's just get a good start and survive for the rest of the race. Trying to pick your way through the pack on these narrow tracks with... I was going to say with netcode, it hopefully shouldn't be as big of a deal this year because of region locking, etc. If apparently that is set in stone now. Again, something else that I missed while I was away, announcing all that. But apparently that is set in stone. If you're unsure what I mean, if you basically get the option to choose one series or the other. So every year we do a European series and a North American series, and a lot of the time, a lot of the top guys do both. A lot of the time, so European is first, and the American guys will use the European series as like practice, so all the fast American guys will be in that. And then for the proper sweats, like myself and some of the other EU boys, we stay up late to NA time and just enjoy that as a second race of the day for us too. What that quite often meant is the same people would be winning Europe as are winning America, because the fastest people will always be the fastest people. Which I can imagine from a certain standpoint is a little bit boring. For those people that are at the top, it's probably quite fun to be able to win more than one race in a day. I am kind of on the fence about it all, but they have said now that you get to choose one or the other. It's not a case of it's locked depending on where you're from. So if I take myself, for example, let's say I work evenings in Europe, so I couldn't make the European races. What I could do is choose to do NA instead and only do NA. That as soon as you qualify for one race on one series, you cannot then go and do the other. So that's how that's going to be approached. So if you're an Aussie, for example, the NA times might suit you better, European times might suit you better. You get to choose whichever one suits you best. But there is going to be a lock. There's going to be coasts as well in Europe for the first time. Don't believe the European 250 series has ever had coasts, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Which means there might be a little bit more competition in the 450s now, where people like just get practicing on 450s on the opposite coast. Charlie, for example, he's going to do, what was it, like the first 8 or so rounds on the 450, and then depending on how he's doing in the series, drop down to 250s for when that coast starts too. So it'll be interesting to get some new competition in the 450 class each week. I'm interested to see what EU 450s is going to look like, to be completely honest with you, mostly because like names off the top of my head is people like Cam or Aiden or Jake. Aqua's been getting quite fast recently as well. Neon's pretty good. There's Dylan has been very, very fast as well. I apologise if I miss anybody's names off the top of my head. But it's interesting to see if any of the American guys are going to be like, you know what, I kind of fancy my chances a bit more in Europe than I do in North America, so let me race that one instead. It's going to be a similar way of how the 250 guys choose what coast they want to ride, really. It's just who they want to compete against. So I'm interested come Anaheim 1, see what's going to happen. Right now, I feel comfortable-ish. I think that's the best way of wording it. Some laps, I feel like I put down absolute burners. I mean, earlier I rode the aerial test track and I was putting down consistent, like, 57s. I know they're not out of this world lap times by any means, but they're good, solid, fast lap times. And then other races, I feel like I'm either oversteering or understeering in corners, and I think a lot of it's just muscle memory at this point. You know, the bikes do handle different to the last OEM bikes. I've got a good amount of days, to be fair, to practice and get used to them, and I do just need to stick with one bike rather than changing all the time. But it's really exciting discovering all these different bikes and how they all handle. I think I've actually showed off all of the fast lines on this track now. I haven't tied them all together into one lap because that's another story in itself. Whilst each line is relatively easy, trying to then string them all together and do them all back to back to back to back, not so easy. So a little bit of like pros and cons there. Also, I'm not sure if anyone else has experimented. You saw just there, you can power slide around bowl turns now, which I think is actually really exciting. I don't know if it's going to be useful in a sense of passing, but it's nice to be able to do that and mess around and feel a little bit looser on the bike than we usually do, where we have to be like super stiff and rigid and follow the full 180 perfectly every time. But you can see big lines on this one, and I'm going to go load up Nashville. I feel like a lot of you will know the big lines on Nashville, but it's just pretty gross how easy they are to do now. I do have a setup at the moment called Dojo, which me and Charlie just have this thing. It's like when you start grinding, you go to the dojo, put in the hours, put in the work, and I don't understand suspension yet still, because I've done a little bit of testing by myself on the aerial test track, and the bike had like stock Husky is not great through whoops at all. Like, it's very pogo-y. It's a very rough ride through the whoop sections, is the best way of putting it. And I looked at it and I was like, right, I feel like I just need to stiffen the suspension up a little bit because it looks like it's really taking that impact and it's compressing too quickly. So I did that in the rear and it felt fine. However, then Charlie sent me this setup that I'm rocking right now, and everything about the rear suspension is softer than what I was running, but it also handles the whoops really well. So I still can't get my head around some things. But if he is kind enough to let me do so, I might release a setup video on this closer to Anaheim, because I hopped on it and instantly started running decent laps. So it doesn't take a whole lot of practice. The only thing that I feel like I struggle with a little bit right now, which I'm not sure is a Husqvarna thing or is a new OEM thing, is I'm struggling with like big lines off the back of Dragon's backs. So on the aerial test track, you hit that Dragon's back into a triple. On Reaper Doc's pre-season track, you got a Dragon's back after the finish line that you can turn into a triple as well. Struggling to really hit the big lines consistently. So we'll see. We'll see if that's just a technique thing and getting used to the new bikes, or if that is to do with suspension. So this track is 2023 Nashville. It's one of the Supercross rounds from last year, and I'll show you some of the just bigger lines. I mean, you usually quad this, but what you can do now as well is just very easy, like triple up and over into this corner, which you never used to be able to do, and it's a lot easier when you quad beforehand. You can also triple into this section here, which I never would have thought of doing before, although I do actually prefer going double triple. Sets you up better for this section here. I feel like there are some big lines to do through this section, but in terms of consistency, I like just going tripling my way through, and then once you get through the sand here, you can send it from one wall to the other wall. You can quad into this section here very easily, which goes quad, quad, and then double, and it's just not a lot of... There's just no real difficulty to it, and I never thought I would complain about this before, but the bikes might be too easy, which is a really weird thing and probably a really stupid thing to even mention. But I feel like a lot of the... I mean, I guess that there is still like skill issues in there, and there's always going to be faster people and places where you can gain time. But at the moment, it seems like to make genuine mistakes that mess you up and cost you time is harder to do now than ever. The bikes are so good landing over jumps or cases that you can ride away, so there'll be no crashes in that regards. Just hitting like normal triples out of rhythm sections now is so easy. You haven't really got to have much manual input. The bike kind of does it all for you, which is just an outrageous thing for me to even be mentioning, because I remember the times where, not that long ago, you'd struggle to even get around a corner without disgusting head shake or the front end tucking. So it's weird that the bikes have come so far that the game is almost too easy now. And that's a really hard, like, weird thing to comprehend, and I feel like some people will be sitting there saying, shut up, what are you on about? Like, the game's still difficult. You have to understand that my perspective on a lot of things in this game will be completely different to the casual player, because I do literally have almost 3,000 hours at this point. Was happy to find out, though, actually, today, that I've only got 25 hours in the last 2 weeks. A lot of that is, for me, literally not playing for a week, but we'll ignore that. So it's literally 25 hours in a week, which is still quite a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have been grinding a lot harder than me. I see that there's some like pro scrims races that go on now. I don't really bother with any of that. I'll just rock up on the day and I'll just keep all the other testing to myself in testing, or play with people like Charlie or Rum, and we'll just see what each other's doing, try and get better. I'm just not, I know, I'm not a big fan of just going into like fully populated lobbies. That was disgusting. I'm hoping that was just a poor entry into the whoops from me and not actually like bad suspension, because I'm a little bit nervous for an Iron 1. There's 2 whoop sections. I have no idea how mean Stone Rider's going to be to us in terms of how steep or how spread out he's going to make the whoops. If he can make them, if it's like the aerial test track, I might be in a world of pain. Or if he can make them like the rush track that I played earlier, it'll be a-okay. It'll be very, very easy. So it could definitely go in 2 directions. I should probably practice both, shouldn't I, before it starts. But as you can see, these bikes are disgustingly powerful, and if I had to change anything about them right now, I probably wouldn't change traction, although they are very, very grippy, because I like what they've done in regards to if you're pulling away hard on the throttle, they do spin. You can feel that wheel spin there. It's not like it's perfect one-to-one traction always. You need a little bit of momentum behind you before the tyres start gripping. So I wouldn't really change that too much. But what I might just suggest that we have a little bit less power, which again sounds really weird. I'm probably one of the only people in the community that would like that, but I'd be interested to know your thoughts on how you feel these bikes are. I'm looking at it like, obviously these bikes are so much fun right now for casual gaming, casual racing, no problem at all. For actual quote-unquote professional, I hate using the word because it's a little bit cringy, for professional racing, I'm a little bit worried that it's just going to turn into just a train of riders around the entire track, where you get a good start and that's it. You know, nobody makes mistakes. There's no way of passing people because it's just so easy. Like, look, I'm not putting in any effort at all. I'm talking to you guys at the same time. I'm literally looking across at my other monitor while playing. And the only place that I'm really struggling right now is whoops, because skill issue / suspension. But all the rhythms, a-okay, no problem. Big quad lines everywhere. Actually, there you go. Front end wash. Good stuff. Actually crashed off my own accord. I don't want this to be taken as like a super negative thing, because I'm actually really enjoying these bikes. I genuinely am. Like, they're really good fun just to hop on. I've just got that little thing in the back of my head that's like, is the Supercross season going to be boring, and is it going to be follow the leader for 20 minutes at a time? That's what I'm a little bit worried about. But I always like these comments to be a little bit of a public forum. I mean, I like to see what you guys think about these bikes. Are they a little bit too OP, or do you think that they're absolutely fine, should be kept how they are? I know there's some people that have genuinely come back to the game now because these bikes are so good. People like Rum, for example, whose favourite, I guess, variation of the game was in the Beta 16 era, and ever since Beta 17, when the traction went a bit poo, and then Beta 18, when the OEMs left a little bit to be desired, he just left the game because he wasn't enjoying it. And now these new ones have come out, he's back and he's loving it again, and he actually wants to play. So it's there's definitely 2 sides to it. I just think the lines that we can hit right now, again, on a 450, so there's a little star next to that, they're pretty damn big, and I'm not sure what Stone Rider's going to do on the Supercross tracks to prevent that from happening. Last resort, I wouldn't want to see like invisible barriers being added so you can't send like massive quads, because again, I feel like these big lines should be doable, but just maybe not as easy as they're doable right now. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's an opinion that I feel like I need to sit and really think about myself as well. I'm just throwing the ideas out there. The bike's just really good. That's what I want to say at the end of the day. They're really, really good, to the point where they might be too good. So huge lines. It does make things a lot more fun. I'm just scared from a racing perspective. So let me know your thoughts. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you could drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new, I'd very much appreciate it. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the day, wherever you're up to. I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.